Hey y'all, and happy new year. It's officially 2023, which is really exciting. I love a new year. So I just wanted to open up this video, get comfortable, and just kind of chat about the changes that have happened. So like in the video's title, I recently went back to working in the hospital after doing private practice for 2 years and not being in the hospital setting for 2 years. And over on my Instagram, which if you're not following, you should definitely go and follow, though I don't plan on being as active on Instagram in this month of January, mostly because I am trying to figure out what brings me joy as far as content creation and educating. So that's neither here nor there, but still, go ahead and follow me over on Instagram at the Milkman. I went back to working in the hospital, and I'm gonna share some of the old hospital videos that are here on this channel already, but I wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about my decision, why I went back, kind of how the transition has been, and talk about the pros and cons of working as a hospital-based lactation consultant. So let's get on into it. First and foremost, I want to talk about the transition back. So I went back to working in a hospital setting October 31st. For the month of November, I did both the hospital and private practice, which was so much work, and I was truly feeling so drained. And I think that's why even now I'm kind of like, whew, let me use the month of January to relax because it was a lot. So anyways, I worked both private practice and the hospital the month of November and kind of trickled down here in December, and then going into the new year, I will not be doing private practice anymore. I'll just be strictly hospital based. So my position at the hospital, I'm working night shift, which it sounds crazy, but honestly, I am really enjoying it so far. It has been very helpful for my family. And ultimately, whenever it comes to a job, I've kind of learned that like you can love your job and still not have a dream job. And so for me, I guess this would be in the realm of a dream job, but ultimately my dream would be to just not work. Okay, but that's neither here nor there also. But whenever it comes down to picking a job and picking a career, and like having worked for this long and being a mom for this long, I finally realized like you do have to find like middle ground, right? And working night shift is what works the best right now for my family, at least this position. So I work night shift. I work 4 days a week. I work from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And I'm so thankful for this shift because it's not like a typical shift, and fortunately they were really flexible with me. I am, with this shift, able to get home in time for my husband to get to work and for me to still take my kids to school, which means a lot to me. And then I also am able to pick my kids up from school. And you might wonder, Erica, when are you sleeping? Well, fortunately, right now, while my kids are in school, it is a little easy to figure out. I sleep from about 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is about 8 hours of sleep, because that was like my biggest thing, is just really trying to make sure I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, or maybe that's 7 hours, but either way, I have been really thinking like, I want to make going into night shift and doing this, I want to do it the right way, especially because I'm older. The last time I did night shift, I was in my like mid-20s, and I'm a lot older than that now. So I know how much night shift can be detrimental on your body. I will have another video soon, which I'm excited about, that kind of goes over all the things that have helped me with night shift. And now that I've been doing it for, I think it's been a month on night shift now, I do feel qualified to say these things. So stay tuned for that video. But anyways, I sleep during the day, I work at night. It does somewhat impact my like social life, but at the same time, it's like, what social life? No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean. It's like I would have been busy no matter what. So I am making it work and I really enjoy it for what it is right now. The hospital that I work is completely different than the hospital that I worked in the previous videos that you've seen me working. This hospital is a lot smaller. It does have a very high Spanish speaking population, and I recently got this book that's like Spanish speaking for lactation professionals. I don't know if it's written by someone Spanish speaking, so I'm kind of like about that part. But for the most part, the book seems like it'll be kind of helpful. And I have been asking most of my Spanish speaking friends, like, hey, does this actually translate well? Anyways, I will talk about that also in another video. I'll be going over that in a later video of books that kind of helped me grow as a lactation consultant. This hospital, big Spanish speaking population, it's a very, very, very small hospital, in my opinion. It might not be if you compare it to someplace in like, I don't know, Minnesota or something. But here, for me to come from the hospital that I came from, which I feel like was huge, then to go to this one, it is a huge jump, which again, I personally love. I like how like intimate everything feels. I do feel like, you know, as time goes on, I'll get to know people. Something else that's really cool is a lot of people have worked there for such a long time. So like, I don't know, everybody just knows everybody, which is a good vibe. I like the energy of being in the building, and it is also so far pretty chill. Like the vibe is a very chill vibe. So anyways, that is enough about me and my transition. I just wanted to open that up because obviously going into this new year, it'll be a full year working there, and it'll be, you know, just different. And I'm excited to see how things change and what I learn, and like, you know, just all the different things that happen whenever you make a change in your career. Okay, so now let's get into the pros and cons of working in a hospital setting. I actually made a video like this a couple of months ago when I was interviewing for the hospital, and silly me got imposter syndrome and just never posted it. But I told myself I'm not doing that anymore, not in 2023. Going forward, I'm just posting whatever I feel like posting. So thanks for watching. Anyways, I made a whole video about the pros and cons of it, but now that I have switched, and a lot of people have asked me like, why did you do this? Like, why did you change? I thought your dream was to work in private practice, blah, 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 blah. I do feel like I just want to talk a little bit more about the topic. So let's talk about the pros first, and then we'll do the cons, and then I'll wrap the video up kind of explaining, I guess, why I made my decision. Okay, so the first pro, in my opinion, for working in the hospital is that there is a level of financial stability. That to me is the older I get, the more important I think it is, the more like, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that makes sense, you know, like that steadiness of a paycheck, knowing how much you're gonna make each month, that is very helpful. Now, that also goes along with knowing how much you're gonna make in relations to how much you're gonna work, right? Because working in private practice, for instance, you don't know how much you're gonna make. Some days it can be very unpredictable, especially during cold and flu season, and especially when parents have multiple children, because it's like, if my kids get sick, obviously I have to call in, but if someone else gets sick, then their whole family's sick, then they don't come in, and obviously it's understandable, but it does impact my wallet. So that can be really tough to like navigate. And also, there were times where I felt like I need to make more money. I need to be able to pay for this. Like, you know, just any type of thing that happens in your life where you're like, I have to make more money. What can I do? And in those moments, I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to work more. I'm going to take more consults. And I would work myself into the ground with that, just because I needed more money. I would be working so hard, taking on more clients, and I truly am a quality over quantity person. But whenever I was getting paid per consult, it had to be quantity over quality, and that is not my vibe. That's not me. Those are the times that I start to feel like bad. I wish I had a better word to describe my feeling, but it truly is like I would just start to feel insecure and like I wasn't doing a good job. And I want to be that person who can be so helpful, but I can't be helpful if I have to help so many people. But I have to help so many people because I have to make money. With all this to say, the financial stability of being in the hospital and knowing also like I will work this amount of hours, I will get paid this amount of money. If I want to make more money, then yes, I could work more, but I know for a fact that I will get this set amount each time. Like that to me is something that I need in this season of my life. And like just working towards so many goals. I mentally have a lot of goals for the next 2.5 years of my life that I would like to accomplish, and I need some stability to do that. I said I was going to talk about it at the end of the video, but there you go. There's one part. Okay, so the next thing that I would say is a pro is that the hospital is very niche, okay? It's very, very niche. And again, I worked in the hospital previously, so I feel like I learned so much from my first hospital job. I feel like I truly, like, I worked with great people. I worked with really knowledgeable people. I worked with people who were like constantly like trying to learn more. So I feel like that motivated me to learn more, and that I did just like take in more information. So I don't know. I just feel like the hospital though, it's narrow as in terms of your skill set or your knowledge base. It's a very narrow thing. Like I am only working with a very specific type of baby, and very specific type of things. And that, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is easier than private practice. So to me, that is a huge pro as far as reaching a level of burnout, right? Yeah. As far as being burnt out, I think it is so helpful to do something that feels easier. So being in the hospital, like, I don't know. And then now that I'm working at a smaller hospital, also, it has been a breath of fresh air. And that is one of the biggest pros, or one of the pros, in my opinion, is that you only know, well, not that you only need to know so much, but like your education, what you're doing right then and there is so narrow. Not to mention, I feel so confident in myself whenever I can deliver that information because I know it. Like, and it's not like I have to learn 50 million different topics. I just learn the like one main topic and I'm able to elaborate on that and expand upon that. And for me, and my personality type, that gives me confidence. That makes me feel motivated when I'm in my job. Like that makes me feel like, honestly, it makes me feel like a boss. Beep. And that is the energy that I want to have when I'm at work. One of the final pros that I can think of in this moment is that you are there at the beginning of the feeding journey when you work in the hospital. Now, do I think that the hospital should be the beginning? No, I do think everybody should take a breastfeeding class and start learning about it when they are pregnant, but that is not up to me. Because anyways, so you are at the beginning of their breastfeeding journey, and I think that I carry a different type of energy and mindset and vibe. And I like to give that to other parents as well. Like, I know working in private practice, I always felt so good being like, hey, no, babe, it's chill. Like, don't stress. Like, everything's okay. Like, to just have that kind of, to be the pillar of calm in like the sea of chaos. I don't even know if that was, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So anyways, I enjoy being that for people, and now to be that in a hospital setting, I think it's really, really, really needed there. Out of all places, I do think the hospital deserves to have lactation consultants who are just as passionate, who are just as calm, who are just as nurturing as private practice ones. And like, I do feel like in the month that I've been there, or yeah, it's been a month. In the month that I've been there, I do feel like I've been able to give that feeling to some parent. Like, obviously not everyone, because not everyone wants it and not everyone accepts it, and that's okay. But the people who have accepted it, I do feel like, I hope that I was able to be that person for them on the start of their breastfeeding journey. So yeah, just being there at the beginning of the feeding journey, I think is so important. I think it's so important to dispel myths at that time and to kind of offer reassurance, offer guidance, and those type of things. Now, a pro for me at working night shift, I think night shift is actually a lot harder as far as educating, because people are tired, and like, listen, when I'm tired, I don't care what you're saying. Like, you couldn't educate me if you tried when I'm tired. And I feel a lot of other people are that way, so I don't try, but I do help them with the feeding. A lot of times I tell them, like, if you want me to get more hands-on, I will. A lot of people have fallen asleep when I've helped them, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just stay in the room. I'll make sure your baby's fed. It's almost like I'm kind of giving night nurse energy, but whatever. Like, I do what feels right in the moment. And some people do want to learn, but for the most part, most people are like, can you just help me get the baby latched on? And that's fine, and that's what I do. So night shift is a little bit different in the sense of I'm not educating as much as I expected, but overall, still good. Those are my pros. Those are the things that I feel like are positives. I know I only listed 3 things, but I think they're 3 really big things. Now, we will get into the cons, the things that I don't love about working in a hospital setting. The first thing, and I think I've talked about this a lot in Instagram, is like, there's a lot less control, a lot less is in my hands, right? And I literally forgot about that until I started working in the hospital again. I mean, I remembered, but like now working in it, I'm like, oh yeah, like there's a lot that's not in your hands. And I think that's where it goes back to being that pillar of calm, being that person that's like, it is okay. Because there are a lot of moments in the hospital where, you know, interventions are used, whether they're needed or not, interventions are used that can impact breastfeeding. Period, point blank. Like, people will be like, no, it won't mess up breastfeeding. No, it won't affect breastfeeding. It's not that it'll mess it up. It's not that, you know, it'll cause you to end your feeding journey, but these things can impact your baby and how they behave, right? So, you know, just certain things like, and I'll tell a lot of parents though, this stuff is not make or break. And that is the biggest thing to know. I think it's important to know that being in the hospital, things can impact you, your baby, but is it going to ruin your breastfeeding journey? Probably not. Honestly, working in private practice, that's the one thing I learned working in private practice. It's like, we can get a baby back to the breast if we really try. We can get your milk. Like, we can figure it out. But another thing I learned in private practice is not everybody has the privilege of working with someone in private practice. So if we can start you off the right way, that's the best way to do it, you know? And if I can give information for you to leave the hospital with in order to like grow, then that's what I'm going to do. So anyways, there's a lot less in your hands working in the hospital. So if you're the type of person who gets frustrated really easily, or you need to be in control, or those type of things, I would say it is a more stressful place to be in. Working night shift now, I love, because again, I don't have to collaborate as much, but I still am picking up whatever was left over from the daytime. So if a doctor told somebody in the morning, like, you're going to be supplementing your baby, blah, 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 at nighttime, I talk with them and I'm like, oh, okay. Or, you know, like, I'm figuring it out at night, and it's a doctor's order. Like, there's just lots of things that I also believe that parents carry the weight of their words a little bit heavier than they do of ours. And that's something as a society we have to like slowly start to like unlearn, that, you know, not every professional person, or some medical professions don't override others just because their, just because their credentials carry a heavier weight. And I feel like, you know, sometimes they'll tell them like, no, you shouldn't breastfeed because X, Y, and Z. And then I know the actual facts, and just kind of not like butting heads, but like trying to work alongside with someone that you're not actually even working alongside. For me, at night, you know, so like that whole thing of not having as much say. Or even there's times where I'll see someone one night and then I see them the next night and they're like in within the 12 hours that I haven't been at work, they're like, oh yeah, I decided to do this, or somebody else told me I should do this, and blah, blah, blah. So that can be a little tricky to work with. It's, you know, with private practice, it's one-on-one, and you're, for the most part, the only person that they're really getting an opinion from. I also feel like outpatient, or the pediatricians that are in the clinics, like some pediatricians you're able to have a conversation with them over these things, but whatever. This leads me into the second con, which is that you are working with a lot of providers. Now, some people might think this is great. I personally don't really love it because I just would like to do my job, and no, I would like other professionals to know that I'm confident in my job, I'm knowledgeable with my job. Like, let me do my job, you do yours. And that is not always the case in the hospital. And that's how hospitals have always felt to me. It's just where, like, you know, the doctors reign supreme and everybody else is a little minion and just supposed to follow along. Fortunately, I have not experienced that right now, but I know for the, like, that is how things can be. So that to me is a con with working in the hospital. And then I wrote down this third thing, but it kind of goes along with the first part, is that you're working against a lot of things. I feel like you're pushing through a lot of things. So whenever I first started working as a lactation consultant 5 years ago, one of the people who trained me gave me the best, well, actually, she gave me the best piece of advice after I made a mistake, okay? So the mistake that I made is that I didn't do enough, right? I helped this mom breastfeed. I did all of the things that you would think to do. Helped her with latch, helped her with positioning, educated her, and then I sent her out the door and she was ready, like everything was good, right? So her and her baby were readmitted because the baby, I think, had jaundice or something like that. So again, that's not my fault, right? But one of the other lactation consultants was looking through the baby's files or something and was like, you know, as I look at this, I see that, you know, the mom was using a nipple shield, the baby was 37 weeks, and now the baby has jaundice. And she mentioned a lot of risk factors. Again, this was 5 years ago, so I've learned a lot since then, like I've said. But back then, still new. I still had the mindset of breastfeeding being this natural thing, which I know that it is. So don't get me wrong, I know that it's natural. But what I learned in that scenario is that I am now working with the concept of breastfeeding being a medical thing. Breastfeeding is a hospital thing. And that is not a mindset that I understood until this other lactation consultant talked to me, and she told me two of the best pieces of advice, and I carry them with me so much now. The first thing she said is Erica, you have to fight fire with fire. You cannot sit here and let fire burn and just stand there and watch it burn. You gotta fight. You gotta fight the fire with fire. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was just like, yeah, it sucks that we're in a hospital and you want moms to go home and feel like they don't need X, Y, and Z. But she was like, you should have gotten her started on pumping. She should have been doing more. And my mindset, and I remember not arguing with her, but defending my actions. And I was like, but should we want them to do more? It's so hard already. I just want this to be easy. And she was like, but it's not going to be easy because the hospital already set up a situation that wasn't easy. So in order to get that milk supply in, we have to work a little bit harder, and then it'll get easier. And once I also switched to private practice, which is one of the pros of working in private practice, and I'll make a video on that later too, the pros and cons of that. But one of the pros of private practice is that I got to see how the actions of being in the hospital impacted the patients in front of me. So just from that alone, I changed how I worked in the hospital, from working private practice and from having this conversation. So she told me that about fighting fire with fire. And then she also told me that I can't just be a cheerleader. I also have to be a coach. And there are days when I find myself just cheering people on and being like, oh, you're doing so good. But then realizing I'm not coaching them through the next step. I'm I'm not helping them know what's going to be, you know, something that they have to anticipate. And that also was a game changer for me. So I think sometimes the reason why I make videos like this is because I had, again, that first hospital that I worked had such great lactation consultants. And same with my private practice group, so many brilliant, smart, caring, nurturing, compassionate women. They taught me so much, and so now I'm like, I want to share that information with all the other people of the world, I guess. So anyways, she told me that, and I remember thinking, like, I felt like if I make a mistake, it'll eat away at me. And clearly, I didn't forget this mistake. So when she told me, I felt really dumb, but then I was like, oh, I'm still new, like I'm still learning. And again, I was thinking of things in this more natural, this more natural mindset, which I realize is more of a mindset I need to take into a birth center. In a hospital, I do think that your mindset has to be a little bit more medical, which is not what breastfeeding should be. But we're here. Just like how birth, all of a sudden we're introduced to like IVs and epidurals, and we have like all these other things that are introduced into birth that is making now the birth a little bit more complicated. It can trickle into breastfeeding and make breastfeeding a little bit more complicated, which sucks because then as a lactation consultant, I have to continue to have breastfeeding be complicated until we can wean off and get to a place where it's not. Is what goes with like working against a lot of things. And I'll just leave one more example. So for instance, like getting a bunch of IVs. I can't even remember, one time somebody had like 4 IVs, ankles swollen, arms, everything just completely like swollen to where areolas were swollen, baby's not latching. We did have to use a nipple shield. We had to use reverse pressure softening. We had to do so many things. And I remember her even saying like, oh no, like I normally don't look like this, like it's normally more inverted. I'm trying to be like more censored just in case I don't want my video to get like flagged or whatever, but she was like, it's normally more inverted, like I don't understand. And they were very edematous, like so much swelling everywhere. So like, yeah, we had to incorporate a nipple shield. Would we had to have done that before? Probably not, but this is something we're gonna have to do now. And then I try and educate people on like, if you can see somebody outside of the hospital, you should, or we need to figure out, if you aren't able to do that, we need to figure out a way to start weaning you off of these things. So working in the hospital sometimes can cause more challenges, I think, as far as education. But overall, I think, if you're delivering in a hospital, like, I don't know, like I don't want to say it is what it is, but like that is unfortunately the route that has been taken. And I will say, like, if you know me, I'm not a hospital girly. I like can see the good and I can also see the bad. Yeah, those are my top 3 pros, top 3 cons. And I guess as you watch the video, you can hear me talk about this, but I basically chose to go back to the hospital because of the financial stability. That was a huge thing for me. Like I said, I have a lot of life goals. I have certain things I want to accomplish. And then also though, to go into the same part, I do feel like I was starting to get burnt out. And that's why I said I don't know what's going to happen in January with my Instagram account. I obviously am going to keep it, but I am trying to enjoy being alive. I'm trying to enjoy being a human. And I do feel like just with private practice, and again, we'll talk about the pros and cons. I'm not going to spoil anything now. I was starting to get very burnt out, and I feel like I couldn't give energy to social media, which I love making these videos. I love making content on Instagram. I love making all the guides and those type of things, but I felt so drained every time I got off work that I just was like, no, I don't feel like doing that. And I didn't feel that way when I worked in the hospital because, of course, with the hospital, I guess another pro is work stays at work. So, yeah. So anyways, I was starting to feel burnt out, and I also really wanted to make more money. So yeah, that is why I picked it. And once they told me they would be flexible with my schedule and all those type of things, and I was still able to like have my cake and eat it too, in a sense, as far as taking care of my family, I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer for where I'm at in my life right now. Is it permanent? I have no idea. I decided I really am taking life 1 year at a time. So who knows what the future is like, but right now this is what makes the most sense for me and for my family. So I think that's really all that matters. But yeah, I think pretty much the main two reasons were finances and trying to stay in this career and not feel burnt out, because that's where I was heading. So yeah, that is all. If you have any questions or concerns, no. If you have any questions about anything, comment down below. If you have any ideas for videos that you want to see, also comment down below, because I do plan on being more active on YouTube this year and just sharing more. Like I've mentioned before, this account will mostly be talking about being a lactation consultant, not really breastfeeding tips and education and those type of things yet that I know of. It might, and I'm not really sure how it'll pivot, but obviously so far that's what Instagram is for. So anyways, just comment down below, and yeah, see you next time.